Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about Halloween Horror Nights. It is one of my favorite Halloween events, and I'm going to talk about what I love about it, what I would change, and also whether or not I think you should think about taking your next vacation there. Let's get into it. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for watching this video. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. We all love vacations, right? And if you're watching this video, then safe to assume that you probably like Halloween just as much as I do, and horror. So if that is the case, then this is exactly the right video for you to discuss what I can share with you on my experiences so far going the last few years and what I think is good, bad, and ugly about it. Also, something I want to mention along that line is the movie Evil Dead Burn, and that's going to be coming out pretty soon. It comes out this Friday, and part of what got me thinking about making a video about Halloween Horror Nights is the fact that there is buzz on the grapevine that is suggesting that Halloween Horror Nights will be having a house that is based on Evil Dead Burn, which I am super hyped about if that is the case, because Evil Dead is a franchise that I love the originals, I love the new ones, and I am very excited to see what Universal will bring when it comes to this, because they have such a spectacular method of bringing these movies to life and making you feel like you're actually walking through the movies when you go through their IP houses or intellectual property houses. Let's talk about that. They're speculating to announce this house possibly on the 9th of this month. So if it is going to be a house and it does get announced, then the speculation or buzz that's getting put out there, I would imagine probably comes from an insider, in which case I am all for it. I love the little hints. I love that part of what is so cool about following Halloween Horror Nights and being a part of it is that the fandom is immense. There is video after video, if you look on YouTube, of people who follow it, who look at from step one of them constructing the stages at the parks, all the way up to them speculating on the scare zones, where those are going to be, speculation maps. There's all sorts of things, and honestly, some people may not care about that. I think it's fun. I just think it adds to the whole excitement of the event, and it's one of those things that I look forward to seeing. I follow all the Reddit threads, I follow the accounts online that talk about it. Before we get too deep into all these details, what is Halloween Horror Nights? If you're not familiar with it, which I wasn't until a few years ago, part of it is because I didn't have a whole lot of money to travel with. I still have to do a whole lot of scrimping and saving and, finagling of my financial situation just to make sure that I can make these trips happen. But that being said, I did find out about them recently, and now it's kind of become a cornerstone of my year and how I kind of plan my financial budget for the year. There's a good, bad, and ugly about it, and there's a reason for it. If you can't tell or you're new to my channel, obviously horror and Halloween are just a huge part of my life. It is something that is all year round for me. That is why one of the taglines in my channel is Halloween is my lifestyle, and that's because that is absolutely true. About 80% of my clothing includes some element of horror or Halloween in some way. My entire house year round is decorated like Halloween, and everything near and dear to my heart as far as decor and just generally speaking that I tend to buy or gravitate toward has to do with Halloween. It is one of those things that stems from childhood. I was raised where I didn't really have a lot of money when it came to Halloween. There were so many things that I wished I could have had and I didn't. So it's kind of one of those fulfilling childhood dreams type thing, where I think that if there's things that you loved in childhood that you did not get to do, whether that be a long lost beloved toy, whether it be things that you really wanted to go do that you just didn't get the chance to, finally you have that adult paycheck and that adult money that you can do that with, then I am 100% for fulfilling those childhood dreams even in adulthood, because there is something very cathartic and therapeutic about it. And for me, that is a big part of the whole thing with Halloween Horror Nights, is that I didn't get to go to haunted houses. I didn't get to do much other than trick-or-treating, and that was with whatever low-budget Halloween costume I could make at home. And don't get me wrong, that was fine. However, growing up, I want to do the things that I wasn't able to do as a child. I want to be able to go to the Halloween events. I want to be able to do my favorite holiday in a big way. And Halloween Horror Nights allows me to do that. So again, what is Halloween Horror Nights? It is a horror-based event that Universal Studios in Orlando and in their California location do annually. and it features haunted houses based on both concepts that they come up with and what they call IPs, which is intellectual property. In other words, actual movies that are typically under the Universal umbrella. They also do scare zones that they change or adjust every year, and they also do some live entertainment element. This whole thing started back in 1991, and I personally remember seeing the Universal Studios commercials specifically when I was watching Double Dare. And I know I'm dating myself there. If you were a late 80s, 90s child and you watched Double Dare, all the Nickelodeon shows like that, and dreamed of one day being able to go to Nickelodeon studios or going to Universal theme parks, then comment below and let me know. I definitely was one of those. I saw the earthquake ride on their commercial and just thought, oh, stars in my eyes. I wish one day that I could travel there and see that. It's been going on. Like I said, they do this event every year since 1991. And back then, just fun fact, a ticket only cost you $12.95. If only things cost what they did back then. I'm sure a lot of you, like me, now that you have adult bills and responsibilities, go back and look at what things used to cost when we were kids versus now, and wowza, there is quite a difference. But anyway, so things about the event, they do themed foods as well, which they tend to change up every year. I know one of the things that I really liked that they had, I don't know if I want to say it was last year, was a Korean style corny dog, and it was themed like Ghostbusters, and they did the cheese on the inside of it that was ooey and gooey, like a green color, which is pretty fun. Overall, it was tasty, and that was the most important thing, but there's just fun little things that you can do while you're there, like enjoy the themed foods. Another element is that a lot of people who go are like you and I and love Halloween and do things like dress up. You can dress up to a certain extent. There are limitations to that because they don't want people to confuse you with cast members or staff. So, of course, there are limitations. However, and also Florida weather does not lend itself too much to you being completely covered up or wearing anything itchy or uncomfortable. But people do a lot. And specifically, I enjoy seeing people wearing their favorite horror merch, like t-shirts and earrings and purses and backpacks and all of those things. And it's just a lot of fun to see people kind of getting to express themselves in their clothes. One of the important things, which I'm sure is something that you're thinking about, is how much does this cost? It is very pricey. And I will say that I do discuss this in almost every video that I do about Halloween Horror Nights because not everyone can afford it, and that really stinks. And I wish that it was more affordable for more people. And honestly, I do think that Universal probably could afford to lower things or do some sort of discount. I don't know. I just wish that it was more affordable because I know how hard times are, especially right now. And I just think that things are fun when more people can participate, but that's just me. That being said, the average cost of a ticket can be upwards from $100 up per day, depending on the day. If it is a extremely popular time period, then that can actually be higher than that. That's another thing that I dislike about that is I wish that the amount or the cost was the same across the board for the event. That way you could plan ahead in advance versus having to hope that you can afford to go when you want to go. The other side of that is also the fact that when you are traveling there, especially when you have to fly or get an Airbnb or a hotel stay, that is an added cost on top of the pretty extraordinary daily fees that you have to pay. So if you want to go into the parks beforehand, that is a separate fee. So if you're already an annual pass holder for the parks, then the Halloween Horror Nights event is its own fee on top of it. It's not included. If you are not an annual pass holder and you still want to enjoy the parks beforehand, then typically you have to buy a daily pass to the parks on top of the event pass, which is pretty up there. I remember as a kid thinking that $30+ for a ticket into my local Six Flags, which was astronomical because, again, money was scarce when I was a kid. So I can only imagine how people feel when they look at the prices for this event. And trust me, I totally understand that. I get it 100% and totally understand if you're someone who thinks that the event is totally just not worth it because it's so crazy up there in price. To each their own, and I understand. The other added expense to that is something called an express pass. So if you're someone who wants to go for one day, maybe 2 days maximum, and you want to both be able to ride everything that's available, but also go through all the houses guaranteed, you pretty much have to buy an express pass. And that's for the simple fact that you're not guaranteed to get through all the houses because of the extraordinary wait times that there can be. And I know I ran into that the first year that I went, and I did not go through every house that there was available. And that was just because I felt like there just wasn't enough time. And also by a certain time period, I was just too exhausted to stand in another line that was going to be 45 plus minutes. So it is one of those things where if you want to see everything or to go to every house, you will have to think about the added expense of an express pass. An express pass can be anywhere from $129.99 to $300 per person per day. And that's pretty astronomical. So again, that's one of those things that you have to be prepared for and know in advance if you're going to these events. Now, is it possible for you to get through everything without one? Sure, but you have to know things about yourself, your physical limitations, how long you can stand in a given day after maybe going through the parks all day. You know, I, for one, have a limited amount of time period that I can stand on my feet because my feet can only take so much. So that's one of those things where you have to just know those about yourself and be prepared and know in advance if that's going to make or break your trip for you. Now, let's get to what I like most about this event. First and foremost, any event that really just goes all out for Halloween and just makes it an entire occasion, I am already interested because it is just something that is absolutely up my alley. It's kind of like the people who are all about Christmas going to those like entire Christmas related whole little towns, or when, you know, different theme parks do holiday in the park. It's basically the same type of thing, only for Halloween lovers or horror lovers. So that automatically is something that I greatly enjoy. I love the attention to detail and the fact that from the moment that you pretty much get there and walk through the gates, you're kind of transported into what feels like a giant horror fest, kind of like the movie Hellfest. And honestly, I feel like Hellfest was kind of based on Halloween Horror Nights. So if you've seen that movie, just know that that's kind of the vibe of the whole thing. It kind of reminds me of both Halloween Horror Nights actually and of the SeaWorld event, which is called Howl-O-Scream. Halloween Horror Nights is just, you know, you walk in and they have like this grand arch that says Halloween Horror Nights. There's great lighting and there's all these scare zones that you get to walk through with all these people, and everyone's just kind of excited. It reminds me a lot of what it felt like on a cool Halloween night when it was on a Friday and everyone in school was really excited, and it started, you know, while you were in class and talking to your friends about what you were going to dress up as, running home to get your costume on, and then getting out to those areas where people really did all the big decorations and hearing the leaves dry rustling along the concrete, you know, all of those autumny things that just made you know like it's fall, holidays are around the corner, just that entire Halloween spirit vibe. That's what I feel like when I am at Halloween Horror Nights only for adults. So if that is something that you like and look to experience, then I definitely think that Halloween Horror Nights is something for you, for sure. The other thing that I absolutely love and will never forget about Halloween Horror Nights, and what actually got me wanting to return every year, is the incredible way that these IP houses are done. One of them being the shirt that I have, which is one of the merch shirts from one of the years that I went. And this one's Insidious. And this one's, I think it says The Further on here. And it is, of course, the red-faced demon. But the way that they have done that house, oh man, it was so cool. So you went in, and as soon as you kind of walked in, everything made you feel a lot smaller than you are. So they had these curtains that just made the whole room feel like 3 stories high. And from the ceiling were hanging these images of the little kid drawing Dalton from the first movie. They're his drawings. And it was super cool. It was just neat to look at. And then when you walked further in, there was literally a gigantic red door that you had to walk through. And then when you walked through it, you actually walked up to what looked like the house from Insidious, the one that's been pretty much in every single movie. And it was super, super cool. It just kind of made you feel like in awe of how did they do that? How did they manage to build such intricate things, you know, in such a short period? But everything about it was just spot on. They had the red-faced demon in this area with all these curtains that looked like it was his part of the further, like his little area. And he would just kind of pop out at random, and it was horrifying in the best possible way. And I just loved it. But the very first year that I went, they had the Halloween movie was one of them with Michael Myers. And then the other was that I remember most was the Black Phone movie. And oh goodness. So in the Halloween one, they had it to where you actually walked into a room that looked just like the movie and that famous scene from Jamie Lee Curtis being in the closet. And it was so great, and it just blew my mind completely away. And then for the Black Phone movie, they actually had the whole scene, and it's the one I remember most. It is the scene where the grabber is asleep in his mask and he's holding that belt because he wants to play naughty boy, which is just horrendous. But that scene where he's asleep and Finney has to go past him or kind of like sneak past him. Well, part of what you do in this haunted house was you had to walk past him, and he could move at any given moment. And it was absolutely horrifying, but great because it made you feel like you were actually in the movie. Like, I will just never forget that. And because of those moments and them being so cemented into my memories, I just thought this is something I cannot miss every year. I absolutely want that every year if I can manage it. And me and my husband just had a ball doing it. Another element, little fun fact, is that me and my husband were married in the month of October. We both have bonded over how much we love Halloween. And so, of course, sharing this event every year is one of the highlights of our year and is actually part of how we celebrate our anniversary. And it's just a lot of fun, and we really, really enjoy it for that reason. Things I would change or somewhat dislike about the event, like I mentioned a little earlier, is I would change how expensive it is. I just wish that more people had the opportunity to enjoy it, especially if you're already having to travel there, because the price can really get insane. One of the ways that I save is by not staying at any of the resorts or on site. I stay at a very modestly priced hotel somewhat nearby and just figure my way out to get there. I also make sure that I am very prepared in other ways with the things that I take with me, you know, reusable water bottles that I refill there because there are water stations everywhere, so I rarely buy anything to drink while I'm there. I also make it a point to do a good delivery grocery order to my hotel room so that me and my husband can make some decently priced lunch and dinners when we need to, and have some snacks and things on the go in our bags so that way we're not having to spend crazy amounts at the parks in order to have a good meal. But we do have, of course, the occasional dinner on site just as a kind of a little extra treat yourself type moment. That being said, I do wish that you didn't have to feel like you needed to plan for buying the express pass in order to basically guarantee that you can see or do everything. I think that's a real bummer. Once having been there more than once, and honestly, I try to get out there every year, a couple of times a year, because I do get the annual pass and I want to make it worthwhile because it is, again, up there in price. I'm okay with missing out on certain things because I've done them enough. So I would feel that the same thing would apply if you've been there a couple of times, or if you're a local, that you probably wouldn't, you know, feel too terrible if you miss something that you've already done plenty of times where it's not that big a deal. For example, if you've ridden a ride X amount of times, the main thing I think that would stink is not getting to do all of the houses when you've paid what you paid for it. And the fact that I don't think that that is a huge priority for Universal is kind of a letdown, and I wish that there was more done to ensure that wait times were not crazy, so that everyone who does pay to get in, like limiting maybe the amount of people that can get in per day, so that way it's a little more reasonable to be able to do it all, would be nice. Do I recommend you going or trying to plan a trip yourself? So yes and no. If you can swing it financially, if Halloween and this kind of thing is up there on your bucket list, if you feel like it will help heal some of that inner child trauma, inner child dreams that you didn't get to fulfill, then 1000% I think that it's worth doing at least once. However, I would not recommend trying to do it and breaking the bank or just trying to keep up with the Joneses to do it. That is not something that I think is worth doing. If you have anything in your area that you can do instead that might still be fun to do, then absolutely look into doing that. I know in my area there are quite a few things that you can still do. Like there is Six Flags Fright Fest and they do a decent job. I've actually watched some videos recently of their houses and their walkthroughs and everything, and it actually looks pretty decent. I hadn't been in a long time because it just wasn't anywhere near the level of Universal, so I just kind of gave up on it, honestly. Not only that, but the amount of crowds and the fact that I don't really tend to take time off to go during the week, or they've limited it to only weekends when it is really, really crowded. I just really rather not do that, and the fact that Halloween Horror Nights still has weekdays where you can go and do the stuff without it being crazy, crazy, crazy crowded, that is my personal preference. But I think that you, of course, can make it work with the things that are available to you nearby. I have absolutely gone just maybe 30-45 minutes, an hour drive from where I live to some really amazing haunted houses, and one of them was like an outdoor one, and I didn't really go in expecting too much, and I actually loved it. It was great. It had a lot of really cool and interesting weird elements. Like I think toward the end I even walked through an abandoned school bus that was part of it, and it was really pretty neat. So if you do some research in your local area, there are some things you could probably take a really short road trip to that aren't bad at all. And those are always worth looking into before you think about traveling or spending a crazy amount to go to something like Halloween Horror Nights. Something else you can still do in Florida is what I mentioned earlier, which is the World Howl-O-Scream. Still tons of fun, and honestly, something that I do appreciate about the Howl-O-Scream over Halloween Horror Nights is that they actually turn out more lights around the entire park, so it is much more creepy and spooky, especially on their scare zones. Way scarier, but in the best way. I do wish that Universal would do the same and turn down more of the lights and give it more of a creepy, spooky vibe, but still super fun. SeaWorld also has a lot of their bigger roller coasters that are available, one of which is a standing roller coaster, which I super enjoyed riding. Really fun experience, different than any other coaster I think I've been on. And there's just a lot of things to be said about that one also, and it's just a whole lot cheaper, and you can absolutely do that one without any kind of express pass needed and still see and do everything there is to do before the time is up. So that's something to think about if you are considering doing something and you're either a Florida resident or you're thinking about traveling to Florida but don't know if you can swing the full expense of going to the Halloween Horror Nights. Then that's something to do. And honestly, if you don't want to travel, period, then something else I can highly recommend if you want to spend 0 coins is look at one of the many horror movie lists that I have done in any of my movie list videos, and I will link them here so that way you can take a look at those. But pull some of the ones that sound interesting to you and make a list and rent them from your local library. There's an absolute treasure trove of movies that you can definitely rent from a local library that are great, and they have usually a pretty great selection. You can even put some on hold if you have an online account. If not, you can also buy some of them on eBay with it being a disc only, and those are a little bit cheaper. So 100% there are things that can be done completely money free to have a great time on Halloween, and you don't have to travel anywhere but to your couch, and that's always great too. And I can tell you that I personally as a kid wouldn't have mattered if I had been on a couch watching horror movies or going to see a actual theme park. I would have had a blast either way, because as long as it was related to Halloween and horror, I was a happy camper. So as long as there are memories to be made, then I am 1000% in support of that. So if you have any fun plans for Halloween this year, let me know in the comments below. If you have been to any of these events and have your own thoughts and feelings, likes, dislikes, absolutely give me a comment below and let me know what those are. Also, what do you think about Evil Dead Burn? Are you going to watch it? Are you excited to see if they are going to make a house about it? I already have my tickets, of course, this Friday to see Evil Dead Burn, and I cannot wait to see it. It is one of those that I am excited about because I know it's going to be gnarly and over the top, and I'm here for it. it. And if you have not subscribed and you like this content, absolutely think about hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you can catch my next video. Bye guys.